He exhaled slowly, as if he had been restraining it for the entirety of the day. He inclined his body forward, elbows perched upon his knees, fingers interlaced with a firm grip. I don't want to create any awkwardness. Welcome to Man Story, the place to store emotional love stories. Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments section, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. Wishing you enjoyable, relaxing moments. Thank you. I entered my son's room to bid him good night, only to find his best friend waiting for me. I simply wished to extend my heartfelt good night wishes. What was intended as a straightforward, nurturing act, nothing beyond that. As I gently pushed open my son's bedroom door, I anticipated the sight of him nestled beneath his blankets, likely in a state of half-sleep, perhaps murmuring something unintelligible. Yet, I found myself paralyzed. It was not my son who lay there, it was his closest companion. He perched on the edge of the bed, his eyes locking onto mine with a steady, inscrutable intensity that felt almost like a challenge. For a fleeting instant, the atmosphere thickened, the space seemed constricted, and the silence thundered around us. I was aware that I ought to have walked away, uttered a word, disrupted the peculiar energy that had ignited between us. Yet I remained there, my heart pounding, ensnared in an emotion that eluded description, an emotion poised to alter the course of everything. Initially, I found myself unable to move. His presence took me by surprise, leaving my mind racing to comprehend the reality my eyes were witnessing. My son's closest companion, David, had transcended the bounds of boyhood. When did that occur? In my recollection, he had perpetually embodied that clumsy adolescent, trailing behind after soccer practice, rummaging through our fridge for treats, and chuckling a bit too heartily at the most trivial of jokes. Yet now, beneath the soft illumination of the bedside lamp, he appeared transformed, taller, broader, his visage exuding a serene confidence that took me by surprise and left me momentarily breathless. I tripped over my words, the apology escaping my lips in a mere whisper. Yet he responded with a gentle smile, warm and inviting, as if he could sense the turmoil dancing within me. I urged myself to walk away, to shut the door behind me and act as if the events had never transpired. Yet, for some inexplicable reason, my hand lingered on the doorknob. Paralyzed in place, he just fell asleep, David murmured, his voice soft and reverent. Yet beneath his words lay a subtle audacity that sent a shiver down my spine. I nodded with a certain stiffness, murmuring vague notions about blankets, about ensuring his comfort, absurd justifications for my lingering presence. I moved across the room, acutely aware of his eyes upon me, the fabric of my loose t-shirt hanging lightly, the gentle caress of my bare feet against the carpet, the closeness of the night enveloping us both. As I draped the spare blanket over my son's peaceful figure, I sensed David's gaze upon me. It was not invasive, it was something altogether different, something unsettlingly tender. I gently tucked the blanket beneath my son's chin, allowing myself to linger a moment longer than needed, crafting a reason to keep my back turned away. As I mustered the courage to look back, I found David still there, patiently waiting in silence. His hands lay relaxed between his knees, and though his expression was inscrutable, it carried a hint of warmth. I mustered a smile, attempting to dissolve the peculiar tension that hung in the air. The day stretched on endlessly. I inquired, my voice tinged with an unmistakable breathlessness. He let out a soft chuckle, a deep sound that resonated from within his chest. Indeed, he remarked, this is quite pleasant. A slight frown creased my brow, a wave of confusion washing over me. What is it? He tilted his head, examining me as if I were an enigma he sought to unravel. Existing in this moment, together with you. My heart faltered. I reassured myself that his intentions were not as they seemed. Certainly, he did not. He was merely expressing his courtesy, appreciative of the years I had opened my home to him. That was everything. I collected the extra pillow and made my way to the closet. Feigning busyness, searching for something, anything, to occupy my hands, I sensed him rise from behind, the gentle groan of the mattress accompanying his movement. Every nerve in my body tightened, a whirlwind of anticipation and panic intertwining within me. You always made this place feel like home, he said softly, drawing nearer. the warmth of his words caressing the back of my neck. I took a deep breath, overwhelmed by an unexpected wave of emotion at such a straightforward remark. With deliberate slowness, I pivoted, letting a light chuckle escape my lips. "That is the essence of motherhood," I remarked with a touch of levity. He offered me a smile, yet it was tinged with sadness, a gesture that conveyed emotions deeper than mere gratitude. "Not everyone is fortunate enough to have a mother like you," he remarked, his gaze deep and sincere. In an instant, the world around me faded into a haze. Before me stood David, not merely my son's best friend or the boy who had spent countless hours in our living room, but a young man exuding a raw, vulnerable honesty that resonated within me, shattering something profound and hidden. I longed to express to him that he was mistaken, that I was merely a woman who had endeavored with all her might, frequently stumbling, frequently questioning, yet the words eluded me. Once more, silence enveloped us, dense and quivering, heavy with an unspoken tension that neither of us had the courage to identify. I glided by him, whispering a good night, yearning to create distance, yet as I approached the door, his fingers grazed my wrist. With a gentle touch, and a hint of uncertainty, his fingers brushed against my skin, yet it was more than sufficient. I stood still, my heart pounding fiercely within my chest. I gazed up at him, poised to urge him to halt, to reiterate the limits we dared not breach. Yet, upon witnessing his expression, the uncertainty, the yearning, the profound reverence reflected in his gaze, I found myself rendered speechless. The realm beyond the confines of the room dissolved into obscurity. This moment hung in the air, poised precariously between right and wrong, between fear and a far more perilous sensation, one that resonated with an aching authenticity. I withdrew my hand softly, not out of anger, but from a fear of how effortless it would be to let go completely. "Good night, David," I murmured, scarcely aware of the sound of my own voice. He nodded, retreating slightly, allowing me to leave, yet his gaze remained locked on mine until the door whispered softly closed between us. Even after I had settled into my own bed, his gaze lingered, a searing presence on my skin, a silent question suspended in the darkness, forever unanswered. The following morning, I navigated the house with an air of normalcy, as though the previous day's events had never transpired. I occupied my hands with brewing coffee and tidying the living room, all the while feigning that the peculiar, electric moment shared with David was merely a fleeting consequence of an emotionally exhausting night. Yet, beneath the surface, I was aware of the truth. Each time my eyes fell upon the closed door of my son's room, a warm flush crept to my cheeks, and I loathed the way my body so readily revealed my feelings. By noon, my son and David had risen, their laughter filling the air as they shared breakfast, playfully shoving one another as was their custom. As I observed them, it felt as though the events of the previous night had transformed into a mere figment of my imagination, a peculiar and nostalgic reverie that seemed utterly out of place in the brightness of the day. I offered a smile, engaged in light conversation, and willed myself to uphold the boundaries I understood were essential. David never brought it up, yet occasionally, I would find him stealing glances at me from across the kitchen table, his eyes holding mine for just a heartbeat longer, sending my heart into a familiar flutter once more. That evening, once my son had departed for a friend's house for a sleepover, I anticipated a rare moment of tranquility. I nestled into the couch with a book in hand, eager to immerse myself in the world of fiction. Yet my thoughts continued to drift away, roaming aimlessly. Each sound within the house resonated with an intensity that felt magnified. The floorboards groaned softly, while the wind murmurs secrets against the panes. Engrossed in my musings, the sudden sound of footsteps behind me startled me, causing me to leap in surprise. It was indeed David. He lingered in that moment, one hand nervously massaging the nape of his neck, his gaze filled with doubt. "Apologies," he remarked. "My intention was never to instill fear in you." I offered a faint smile, placing my book down gently. "It is acceptable. My attention simply wandered." He paused for a moment, then settled himself at the far end of the couch. The space that lay between us was marked by a certain decorum, a fitting measure of restraint. Yet again, the air was dense, Resonating with the unspoken words, we endeavored to keep at bay. We exchanged pleasantries for a few moments, discussing school and my son's wild weekend ambitions. Yet the conversation felt contrived, lacking substance. At last, David ceased to speak. I cast a sidelong glance in his direction, discovering him once more observing me, his gaze cloaked in an enigmatic expression. "May I pose a question to you?" he murmured softly. My stomach churned. I acquiesced, despite a primal urge within me urging flight. He started to speak last night, then faltered, grappling with the right words. Did I cause you any discomfort?" I instinctively prepared to refute the claim. Yet the undeniable truth lodged itself in my throat. I gazed at him, truly gazed, and perceived not merely the young man he had evolved into, but the boy who had consistently sought my guidance, my solace, and now, in some inexplicable way, for something greater. "No," I finally said, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. "You certainly did not." He exhaled slowly, as if he had been restraining it for the entirety of the day. He inclined his body forward, elbows perched upon his knees, fingers interlaced with a firm grip. "I don't want to create any awkwardness," he remarked. I have always." He fell silent, shaking his head as if the very words were too perilous to utter. I lingered, my heart pounding in my chest. "I have always thought you were incredible," he finished in a rush, his cheeks flushing a deep crimson. "Not merely beautiful, but also resilient, compassionate. Your presence has always enveloped me in a comforting embrace, seeking, even when I felt out of place in every other setting." His voice, laced with sincerity, shattered a barrier within me. Tears threatened to spill from my eyes, yet I managed to blink them back. I felt compelled to convey to him that his confusion was palpable, that I had outgrown this, that the situation was fundamentally flawed in countless ways. Yet, as I parted my lips, silence enveloped me. David inched nearer, his demeanor careful, allowing me every opportunity to decline. "You're more than just my friend's mom," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "You exist. You truly exist." The warmth of his presence enveloped me, while the tension between us stretched taut, verging on the edge of discomfort. Gingerly, almost instinctively, I extended my hand and made contact with his, a mere brush of fingertips. Yet, his response, the delicate way his fingers intertwined with mine, filled me with a profound ache in my chest. I urged softly, my fingers intertwining with his, a gentle plea hanging in the air. "Perhaps not," he conceded, his gaze unwavering from mine. Yet, I find myself powerless against my emotions. The reality was, I found myself in the same predicament. In an instant, he drew closer. It lacked the audacity one might expect. It moved with a certain reluctance, as if each step taken was a silent request for approval. I had the power to intervene. I ought to have. Yet, as his lips grazed mine, gentle and hesitant, I surrendered to him completely. The kiss began as a whisper, a delicate inquiry lingering in the air. As I remained still, he found his courage, his trembling hand gently cradling my cheek, deepening the kiss in a manner that ignited every fiber of my being with warmth and desire. I wove my fingers into his hair, savoring the way the silky strands glided through my grasp. My heart raced with such intensity that I feared he might catch the sound of it. His hands found their way to my waist, cautious and reverent, as though I might disappear if he pressed too firmly. Every fiber of my being surged with a vitality I hadn't felt in ages. As we finally separated, our breaths came in heavy gasps, our foreheads lingering in close contact. "Less than text, I apologize," he murmured, yet his tone betrayed no hint of remorse. I chuckled gently, a fractured, gasping noise. "I am not," he smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that rendered him youthful and exposed. Twisting my heart with a pang of pain, he confessed, "Neither am I." We lingered in that moment, entwined in each other's embrace, both reluctant to release the delicate, exquisite treasure we had just discovered. I was acutely aware that this moment was fleeting. I was aware that there would be repercussions, intricacies, and lingering regrets. Yet, in that gentle embrace of the night, all of it faded into insignificance. The only thing that held significance was the profound, undeniable reality. I was observed, I was desired. I existed in that moment. For the first time in what seemed like an eternity, I allowed myself to embrace the notion that I was worthy of it. The ensuing days were steeped in a silence that was paradoxically enveloped in a cacophony of sound. My son remained blissfully unaware. He arrived and departed, chuckled with David, broke bread with me as if nothing had changed, as if everything remained just as it always had. Yet, all had transformed. I had transformed, and I was filled with dread that it was evident. In fleeting moments, I would catch sight of my reflection in the mirror, struggling to recognize the woman who gazed back at me. Indeed, a flush of color adorned her cheeks, a spark in her gaze that had long been absent. Yet, there lingered another emotion, a fleeting shadow of shame she endeavored to conceal beneath her radiant smile. David lingered throughout the weekend, and we moved in a delicate ballet, as if gravity itself conspired to draw us nearer, perpetually on the brink of surrendering to the inevitable. The kiss remained unspoken between us. Yet, whenever we found ourselves in solitude, the atmosphere grew dense with unspoken tension. Each gaze lingered just a heartbeat beyond what was customary. Each casual touch hung in the air, stretching a moment into eternity. And then, Monday arrived. Life returned to its familiar rhythm, unyielding in its everyday cadence. David returned to the campus. My son has gone back to school. In the end, I found myself enveloped by silence. Yet, it was far from peace. The sound was overwhelming. I revisited each detail repeatedly, the caress of his lips, the gentle warmth of his hands, the way his gaze lingered on me as if I were more than a fleeting encounter. I ought to have felt a deep sense of revulsion towards my own actions. Regret should have washed over me. Yet what I experienced was something far more perilous, a deep, insatiable longing. I longed to hear from him. I found myself wondering if he held me in his thoughts as I did him. Yet, a deep-seated fear gripped me at the thought of him reaching out. For I doubted my ability to respond with the right words. It was one of those evenings, the kind that settles into a quiet rhythm after the clatter of dishes has faded. Just as I put the last plate away, my phone vibrated, breaking the stillness. A message arrived from David. "How are you holding up?" Uncomplicated, innocuous, yet my hands quivered as I gazed upon it. After a painstaking hour, I finally decided to respond. Yet, even in that moment, all I could muster was, "I am uncertain." His response arrived without delay. "I feel the same way." And in an instant, the floodgates swung wide open. The dialogues began with a sense of restraint. Our conversation meandered through the realms of education, my son's adventures, and the enchanting worlds found within books and music. Yet, beneath each message lay an unvoiced connection that bound us closely, a subtle longing, a revelation that lingered unspoken between us. One evening, he shared with me a photograph of the sky, where a rich orange sunset melded seamlessly into shades of purple. It brought you to mind. A dull ache throbbed in my chest. How can something so uncomplicated evoke such a profound sense of intimacy? I found myself questioning the very fabric of my reality, the limits I set for myself, the tenets I hold dear, the existence I had meticulously crafted. Did I feel a sense of solitude? Indeed, could this have been a diversion? Perhaps. Yet, it seemed to transcend mere existence. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen, not merely as a mother or an ex-wife, but as a woman in my own right. The guilt continued to gnaw at my insides. In the stillness of the night, I found myself wide awake, gazing at the ceiling, lost in contemplation about the kind of example I was creating. What might unfold if my son were to discover the truth? How might it affect the bond they share? Shall we delve into the depths together? And yet, the notion of dismantling whatever had started to blossom between David and me felt akin to strangling my own breath. On a Friday evening, my son casually mentioned that he would be out late, perhaps working on a group project or simply using it as another excuse to spend time with his friends. I feigned indifference with a nod. Yet as soon as he departed, a tidal wave of anticipation engulfed me. Uncertainty lingered in my mind about whether David would make an appearance. No plans had been made by us. Yet, a fragment of my being yearned for him to do so. He certainly did. He made his entrance an hour later, gliding into the house with a subtlety that suggested we had practiced this moment in some distant past. As I swung the door open, our gazes intertwined, and silence spoke volumes between us. We found ourselves seated opposite one another in the living room. The stillness enveloped them, a blend of ease and unease, reminiscent of the moment just before a tempest breaks. There was an unmistakable air of age about him, graver in nature, yet, beneath the burden of something more profound, that boyish charm still lingered, waiting to be uncovered. "I do not wish to cause anyone pain," I murmured softly. He inclined his head in acknowledgement. "I feel the same way." "Yet, we already are," I interjected, my voice trembling. David leaned in, his gaze brimming with earnestness. "Then instruct me to depart." "Indeed, I shall." Yet, I found myself unable to do so. In that moment, the undeniable truth was that I wished for him to stay, not due to any weakness on my part, not out of selfishness. Yet, in his presence, I experienced a profound sense of being truly acknowledged, experienced a sense of recognition. After countless years of submerging myself in the demands of others, I yearned to reclaim my own existence, if only for a single night. The atmosphere in the room was thick with anticipation as David awaited my response. My heart thudded against my ribs, yearning for the clarity that eluded me, a fragment of my being, shaped by years of nurturing, duty, and unspoken selflessness, yearned to usher him out, shut the door firmly, and erase the very existence of this moment from my reality. Yet, a different voice within me, more subdued yet resolute, urged me to make another choice, to select my own path. I inhaled deeply, a deep, trembling sigh that felt as though it spanned the vast expanse of solitude endured over countless years. At last, I found my voice and declared, "I cannot. It is not within my power to ask you to depart." A look of relief swept over his features. Yet he remained still. He lingered, calm yet apprehensive, filled with a deep sense of reverence and fear. Exactly as I am, with deliberate care, I extended my hand towards his. His fingers encircled mine, radiating warmth and steadiness, anchoring me in the moment. We lingered in that space for what felt like an eternity, two souls teetering on the brink of countless missteps, bravely opting for a fleeting sense of correctness. If only for this delicate instant. We took our time, promises lingered unspoken, and the future remained unwritten. Merely the recognition of something unique and genuine unfolding softly between us. Perhaps it could shatter us. Perhaps it could be our salvation. I was unaware. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, a sense of vitality coursed through me. And that, I resolved, was worth every ounce of my being.